name of it. So, ragtime does not stay ragtime though. It mutates. It transformed itself into something a little bit different. It's like, I was talking with someone the other day. They said that, I hope I get this correct. They said the AIDS virus mutates every 24 hours. Has anyone ever heard that? Who? Anyone? Don't leave me. Don't get me embarrassed up here. Okay, one person, so it's good enough. I'm going to explain it then. and it could have, I don't know. It could have been some other virus he's talking about. He just told me this like last week. What he was saying was that the virus, in other words, it is difficult to fight this virus because every 24 hours it converts. So just when you're already okay, we got it now, it switched up. And you know what? It's amazing. It seems that every time God's people begin to figure out, oh, something's wrong with this, it mutates to the new style. So let's look at this. Ragtime is on the scene, but it mutates now and turns into something called the blues. Did you know that's where the blues came from? Yeah, now you know. And it's interesting, beloved, that as we look at the blues in its history, just speaking historically, we look at the blues and we begin to see what happened when the blues were let out on the scene. What did you find? You found two things. Egypt, who is God that I should obey him? And Sodom, sexual immorality. Everywhere this music went, you found the very same things. So would it be fair to assume then that the blues is simply an adapted form, a mutated form of that which sprung out of the abyss? What do you think? Some of you are getting real quiet on me now. Well, it doesn't stop there because the blues also mutated. And it turned itself or adapted into something that we call today jazz. Yeah. Wikipedia, the word jazz itself is rooted in American slang, probably of sexual origin. Did you know that? The word jazz was actually slang for sexual connotations. Remember, who is God that I should obey him? And Sodom. Sexual what? Immorality. Wherever jazz went in the 1920s and 1930s, what do we find following? Egypt and Sodom. Is it fair to say that jazz, this word that stands for sexuality, this music that leads people to act like animals, this thing that began to change a society, is it fair to say that jazz was an incantation, a musical spell designed to manipulate the atmosphere in order to get the species to adapt? What do you think? And so, we know that it didn't stop there. Because in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, we have a new music on the scene called rock and roll. And I think it'd probably be a waste of breath to actually ask you the question, what do you see when you see rock and roll? But for the sake of asking it, do you see Egypt? Yes. Do you see Sodom? Yes. Yeah. It's amazing. And do you know, I tell people all the time, and I love rock music. I love rock music. Anybody else out there love rock music? You don't love rock? Come on, who loves rock music? Raise your hand. Pastor Hush, thank you. Pastor Hush loves rock music. That's on camera, so I better explain that, right? See, what you guys don't understand is that this rock and roll music is a counterfeit of real rock music. They're still not getting it.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Rock music. Yeah. Rock, capital R.
Yes.
Rock. My hope is built on. You get the picture? Rock music. They who build their house upon the rock. They're wise. So yeah, I love rock music. But the devil came along and produced a counterfeit rock music that was really to mock Jesus Christ. And that's what the music does. And so he brings about this spirit of rebellion through this rock music, and it's just like a revolution. A revolution. So it is fair then to say, I believe, that rock music is simply an adaptation of that which sprung out of the abyss. Let's go back to the 1940s a little bit. There's a little island, and on this little island you have some young teenagers and others who are listening to music from America, but the music is coming in. It's the R&B music. It's the rhythm and blues. The music is coming in over the airwaves, but when it comes in, the airways aren't so good, so the music will play, and then it'll stop. And then it would play, and then it would stop. And so the guys began to say, well, you know what? While the music has stopped, we may as well fill it in with some talking. And the name of the island was Jamaica. And by the way, I always forget to do this, but for those of you who feel bad, think I'm picking on Haiti, the guy who led out in the voodoo ceremony, he was Jamaican. And, they say you'll find a Jamaican anywhere. So, that's a perfect example of what he was doing there, leading out in Anyway. So here you have this music now, and beloved, when you look at this music in Jamaica, you find two things. What do you find? Who is God? Yeah, can anybody testify? Yeah, don't raise your hand. Who is God that I should obey him? And what? Sodom, sexual immorality. Well, in the 1970s, a guy by the name of Kool Herc, Jamaican, left Jamaica and came to the United States of America. And he brought this new style of DJing with him. And this caught on in the places like Bronx and Brooklyn. And the music once again adapted to form something new called hip-hop. When you look at hip-hop, what do you see? Two things. Who is God that I should obey him, and what? Sexual immorality. Is it fair to conclude that hip-hop is really an adaptation of that which sprung out of the abyss. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt at all. Have a powerful quote here I want to read. I want to read one from Ellen White and then one from Robert Palmer. I want you to listen to Robert Palmer's quote first, then I'll read Ellen White's next. The idea that certain rhythm patterns, and by the way, Robert Palmer is he's in the music industry, and he's got a book called Rock and Roll, An Unruly History, and he loves